everybody. Welcome to the tall and the short of it. Betsy's going to be popping in here in a minute. I'm Jenny, and we are going to be talking about an eligibility category today with you, other health impairments. So we will see when Betsy pops on. Oh, you know what? I'm going to need to plug in my headphones, or else we are going to have a sound issue. So here comes Betsy. My headphones untangled. I forgot all about, they were laying down here. So she is coming in. There she is. Hello, Betsy. Hello. Hey, can you hear me?
Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're
lagging.
I'm lagging a little.
Oh, I know what it is.
Oh.
I'm not connected to the internet again, but last time I did it, I don't think it changed anything, so we're fine.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the tall and the short of it once again. Hello, Jamie Hannah, who is watching.
Hey, Jamie.
We are going to talk today about other health impairments. And Betsy's going to make sure that we don't get long-winded because we decided we were going to try to stick to under 30 minutes, right? We're going to keep these under 30 minutes.
Yes, I set a 15-minute timer.
Excellent.
So I can.
That gives us warning.
Yes.
All right. So hi, Patty Willie. All right. So the first thing we probably should talk about when we say other health impairment is that it's one of the 13 categories of special education that you can qualify for. Hi, Johnny Young. So if you want your child, if your child qualifies for special ed, there's only 13 categories they can qualify for. One of them is other health impairments. So we looked up the legal definition of an other health impairment to be able to read to you. And I'm going to read it, but then we're going to have to break it down because I even get confused about halfway through. All right, so it says that the definition of a other health impairment means having limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environmental stimuli that results in limited alertness with respect to the educational environment that, number one, is due to a chronic or acute health problem, such as asthma, attention deficit disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, diabetes, epilepsy, a heart condition, hemophilia, lead poisoning, leukemia, nephritis, rheumatic fever, sickle cell anemia, and Tourette syndrome, and ... There, you can add other health, acute, chronic and acute health conditions. Hi, Aunt Karen. So that's one qualification. So you have to have that chronic or acute medical condition that causes limited strength, vitality, alertness, including heightened alertness, blah, 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 right? Number two, it also has to adversely affect your educational performance. Okay, so there's two parts. So did you get lost?
And now it is clear as mud.
Right, so did you get lost? Because I got lost in that definition when I would read it. So, so let's break that down a little bit. All right, so first qualification is the chronic or acute medical condition. All right, so this is usually diagnosed by a doctor or a clinical psychologist of some sort. Okay, so if you have anything that's a medical condition that could be limiting your strength, vitality, or alertness, or heightening your alertness with regard to your entire environment so that you can't pay attention to what you're supposed to be paying attention to in class, And I think that one's mostly focused on ADHD. I mean, for the most part. But a lot of health conditions can cause you to not pay attention, not just ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think we tend to jump to conclusions sometimes. Yeah, Patty Bully goes, rheumatic fever. I would have qualified.
Oh.
Hi, Sue Davis. Thank you for the flowers again. Sue Davis sent me flowers. She's so sweet.
I was about ready to say, I know you sent me a picture, but I forget we're talking to other people.
I know. So people, I don't know if everybody
because I
knows.
can't see. It's just
Yeah.
I can't see anything. It's just Jenny.
No, I got a new job. I haven't told everybody that yet. So I got a new job and Sue sent me flowers. So anyway, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you know what that is. And if not, friend me on Facebook, then you'll find out. So a lot of those medical conditions can cause kids to not pay attention to things. So I think like I said, we sometimes jump to conclusions that they're not paying attention. Oh, it must be ADHD. Not necessarily. It could be seizures. It could be a lot of things.
Sorry, we're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks, but you don't automatically say they're not paying attention.
Right.
They automatically have ADHD or ADD because they are paying attention. They're just paying attention to everything.
Exactly. And Landry Small says, hello, Betsy.
Hey, Landry.
And Sue Davis says, you two are super. All right. So you have to have that chronic or acute medical condition. That's the first part of the qualification to have an other health impairment. There's part two, though. And that part is it has to adversely affect your educational performance. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you, Betsy?
Well, it's going to be a student who's being exposed to the instruction, just like every other student, and is not able to, is not learning the information, possibly is missing instruction for certain, maybe they're missing out on instruction, like say they're diabetic and are missing out on instruction. I mean, they're going to miss out on some instruction because of testing, but there can be extreme measures for that.
Sure. Or they're being removed from the classroom because of behaviors that are not good social skills or,
So it's, when we say it's affecting is that they're not performing where we feel like we see a disconnect, that they're not performing in a way that we feel they could be.
Right, to their potential.
And there's reasons why we think that. Like, as a teacher, you look at, just different things that assignments, different things in the classroom, or maybe on certain tests, you see that they're, like if we take our NWEA or reading, or, maybe they're doing really well, they're a good reader, but they're not doing well with a test or different things like that.
So Sue has a great question about this. She says, does it mean they're also adversely affecting others from learning? And technically, definition wise, no, but we do look at whether or not they're disrupting the educational environment and causing themselves and others not to learn. Now, if it's both, then yes, we take that into account. But if they're still doing great and just being a stink pot, then that's not technically a disability.
No.
So that's just
but it still needs to be addressed.
It still needs to be addressed and can be addressed through other ways, but not necessarily specially designed instruction. So, but yes, they have to be affecting their own performance too. So, I mean, usually when we look at a kid for special education, they're getting Fs, or they're in the really, really like single digit type percentiles, or
their reading's not progressing, or we're not seeing, they're way below grade level.
They're not learning the things they've been taught over and over again. They're not retaining, there's holes in their education. Well,
and even, I'm going to try to say this. I mean, like, I had this, like, we noticed, I had a student who had a medical condition who seemed to be doing fairly well, seemed to be doing okay, and then had some major issues with that medical condition, and then
wasn't.
The academic performance changed drastically, even though when they came back, it seemed like they were this, you know, everything seemed like it was back. And so, and like we've talked about that since that we know that there had to have been a direct correlation. I say we know. We don't know, but we feel.
Right.
We think.
Well, we've seen that pattern enough in some kids, like specifically with diabetes. Diabetes, if that sugar is out of control and they can't keep it stabilized, it affects cognitive ability. I mean, we've seen that pattern over and over and over again. It can actually lower that child's IQ over time. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's just leading us right into the next thing. She says, when do we know when to not give entitlement, but go to a 504?
Sue, literally, the next thing on our notes, whatever.
Yes.
Need for a 504 versus an IEP.
Exactly. So sometimes we'll have a parent who, let's say they've gone to the doctor. They've got that ADHD diagnosis or another diagnosis, and they say, and I've seen these more than once where a doctor will send me a script that says, please give IEP. I just think that's so cute that doctors think they can do an order like that. But they can't.
Just to write a prescription.
They can't. We will consider whether or not to test. We always have to consider whether to test, but a doctor can't write an order for an IEP.
And that doesn't even automatically mean that we will test.
Right. It doesn't. It means we'll consider testing.
We look at things. Yes. We don't just be like, oh, yes, or oh, no. There has to
be data to support testing. Remember that adverse educational performance piece? Yeah. So, like I said, if we do test, let's say we decide we're going to go ahead and test, because there's some things going on there. We think there could be. And then when we test, all their achievement scores come out in the average range, and they're not showing on their rating scales, like things that are really big for attention or, you know, that kind of thing. So we decide, no, this child needs to be in general ed curriculum with no specially designed instruction, but he could maybe use a few accommodations. Maybe we've got a slower processing speed, just that one little area. Or maybe we're thinking, you know what could help him focus is just having his test read for focus, not because he can't read, but because it could help him focus and not rush through things and you know, that kind of thing. If they don't need special education, like specially designed instruction, but they do need just reasonable accommodations that we could give to any kid, that's when we decide to go with the 504. So like I said, anytime you test a child and they don't qualify, you have to consider a 504. Because there was a reason you decided to test in the first place. So you have to at least think about doing a 504 plan. Now, I didn't even explain what that was. I'm sorry. A 504.
Okay, hang on. We need to do a live on accommodations versus modifications.
True, we should.
Okay, sorry. I just didn't want to forget that.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Go ahead.
So backing up.
What is a 504?
Back up. What's a 504? So the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is it's section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And this was actually mostly written for employment, for adults, to make sure that no one's discriminated against in their workplace because of their disability. But they put this little section 504 in the law that said that in schools, we have to provide reasonable accommodations to students as well. So if a child, you know, doesn't qualify for an IEP, we still should consider whether or not they need reasonable accommodations for a 504. And sometimes they shouldn't. I mean, like, and here's the thing. Sometimes they should, but then the kid won't use it or they don't use it. And then we just decide to let
that's with an older
That's with older students.
Like,
yeah.
A younger kid.
Yeah, we just make them.
We don't necessarily give them that
we don't give them a choice.
We're like, come on, you're coming to do this or whatever.
We have older kids that, yeah, they may have ADHD. Yes, they could use some accommodations, but they just won't. They won't go to the resource room. They refuse any accommodation, but they're doing okay. They're passing their classes. They're doing fine. So then you wouldn't need a 504 at all. Like I said, lots of kids have ADHD, take their medication, and they have no plan whatsoever. They don't need it because they have coping skills. They have parents who are supportive. They have, you know, all those pieces, parts wrapped around them where they don't need a 504 or an IEP. But then there are kids who need those reasonable accommodations just for testing purposes and with classroom tests and with state testing. And then there's those kids who need some specially designed instruction and social skills, and they need that specially designed instruction to teach them organization. Hi, I'm guessing that's a Carrie Welch because it says Justin Carrie Welch, but I'm guessing it's Carrie Welch. Hello. But sometimes we have those kids that need that little middle step. Not nothing and not an IEP, but they need that 504 right in the middle just for a few extra things. I had a kiddo one time who literally, she just needed extra time. That was it. I mean, if you gave her enough time, she could get all the right answers. But she just had a very slow processing speed. And with the evidence from that psych report, we were able to do that. So we gave her a 504. Right. So sometimes a 504 is necessary, sometimes not, sometimes an IEP, sometimes not. Like I said, it just depends on whether they hit both of those qualifications. Do they have that acute or chronic medical condition? Yeah. And is it adversely affecting their performance? Hey, Christy Douglas. All right. So.
Man, everybody's popping in tonight.
I know. We should do this at this time more often, man. We probably will. All right, so the next thing on there, and you brought this up when we were talking about it, Betsy, so I don't know if you wanted to talk about it.
Well, we have done a live on the Medicaid waiver, and depending on what the medical condition is, a Medicaid waiver is a possibility depending on that severity.
Severe enough. For sure.
So like when we talk about the Medicaid waiver, like and everything kind of depends on.
Oh, I lost your sound. Can't hear you anymore. Hey, we lost your sound. Did your batteries go dead? I can't hear you. Is it you or is it me? Can you hear Betsy? Can you guys hear Betsy that are on? No. All right, I'm gonna second. Can you hear me now? You can't hear me either? Oh no. Wonder why. So Sue can't hear us either. Wonder what it is. Can you hear me, Sue? Oh, they just can't hear Betsy.
Heard ya. Oh,
there we go.
Heard ya.
I don't know what happened. But they said they could hear me, but not you.
Okay, well, we are so professional.
Oh my gosh, technical difficulties.
Okay, so just to know, Medicaid waiver is a possibility, and that's something just to note and to look into. Here's the thing. I actually was just talking to a parent the other day. It doesn't hurt anything to try.
Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
It's better to have tried and not get it.
Well, and with Medicaid waivers, you want to try more than once.
Yeah.
Because they're always going to say no the first time. Just letting you know.
Yep.
All right, because they hope you'll give up. Hey, Allison Fancher. Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good golly, everyone is.
I know. So cool. All right. So health plans. So when you have a kid with an OHI, a lot of times they'll have a health plan, especially for kids with seizures, for kids with diabetes, if they have any kind of medications that they need to take at school. Sometimes there'll be a health plan for that. So those usually are given to the school by the doctor and kept by your school nurse. So you want to document that there is a health plan kept in the nurse's office or where that is kept in the IEP. There's a spot for that. So that's important. And then just as a follow-up with that, we talked about how sometimes the school nurse should be on the IEP team.
Yeah.
Like this, they are important, especially if it's seizures or diabetes. They're going to need to report their documentation, and when they see that student and how often, and if there's any concerns, they need to be involved in that. We had a kid who had a tumor, who we had to have our school nurse involved because he would be down there sometimes because he felt dizzy or he had headaches or that kind of stuff. So we need to make sure.
Or with the seizures, I mean, I think it's important for the nurse, because sometimes, like, I've had students who have focal seizures, and everyone, like, when I say everyone, like the doctor, the parent, they're just like, nope, just documenting is fine, let me know, kind of a thing. And I usually try to time and that kind of stuff. But then, like, you need to know, all right, at what level do we do what?
Yeah. So nurse is an important part of the IEP team for a lot of our kids with OHI. So just note that they should be involved. All right. And then last but not least, I get this question a lot. Do you have to have a medical diagnosis in order to get special education services under OHI? And the answer is positively and absolutely no. Okay. So it has been held up in court more than one time that you do not have to have a doctor diagnose you in order to get an OHI IEP. Now, what you do have to have is evidence of that acute or chronic medical condition somehow. Most of the time, it's with medical documentation because they had it before they even came to school. I mean, especially if it's a seizure disorder or if it's diabetes or whatever.
It's not something, that's not a school's area of
we don't diagnose. So, but with things that are still in that gray area, like ADHD, where a lot of times parents will come asking if the school can diagnose their kid with ADHD, and no, we can't. But if we know there's major attention issues and it's affecting their educational performance, we have an obligation to test that student and see if that evidence shows up in our testing as the possible reason for their educational performance being low. And if the case conference committee decides that child qualifies based on our testing, you can use a psych report to determine OHI. But you can't have no evidence and give an IEP for that. So, like I said, we've had kids that have not received an ADHD medical diagnosis yet, but when we tested them, we saw major attention problems pop up in their parent forms, their teacher forms that the teachers fill out. We used to give CPTs at school, like the Connors performance test.
Can you tell who used to give them?
I mean, it's a screener. We used to use that to see if we could see attention problems. And, if all that's popping up and it's showing that they're having, issues with working memory and issues with processing speed, those are both indicators that there's an attention problem. So if you can see that clearly in a psych report, that's enough evidence for you to use to determine, not that they have ADHD. You can't say that, but you can say they qualify for other health impairment. So, like I said, that's one of those fine lines. Schools don't diagnose. We find eligibility. So it's a huge difference. Okay. So that is everything we had for you today. Did we stay under the time?
Well, yeah, because we'll say yes, because
just over 15 minutes.
I don't.
How much? How much over?
I don't know, because I didn't turn. Give me a second. I have to go on Facebook to our live and see how long we've been chatting. You don't have to. Because I didn't start it back over.
Oh, gotcha. It's okay. I was just curious if we kept it pretty good.
Yeah, we are close. I mean, we're not.
Good deal.
We're at like 26 minutes.
Oh wow, we stayed under 30. Woohoo! Yeah. Yay! All right. Well, next week we are super excited. Have you talked to her? Have you talked to her recently?
No.
Okay, so we got
since our last one, but she's excited.
We got to nail down the deets, right? The details.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so next week we are going to have Chelsea Chrisman with us, live and in person. Chelsea was actually one of my students in middle school, and she was on my caseload all through middle school, and she has a disability called dystonia. And she is a huge advocate as an adult now for dystonia awareness. And she does so much with this through her Facebook page. And she's traveled to Washington to advocate for dystonia awareness. She's talked to the mayor here in Muncie to ask for dystonia awareness. I think they had a dystonia awareness day here in Muncie because of Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea is just so phenomenal.
She raises, they have the fundraiser that we will talk about.
We need to just repost the scavenger hunt right before we do our live next week, because she does a scavenger hunt in Indianapolis to raise awareness, a huge fundraiser. And Betsy and I are still planning to go, and we need teammates. So if anyone wants to go with us, it's on the 29th.
We did it last year and we didn't win.
No,
and by golly, we're going to win.
We're motivated this year. Motivated to win the scavenger hunt this year. It was super fun. And you get to learn all about dystonia while you're doing the scavenger hunt. And there's tons of like door prizes and raffle prizes and all kinds of stuff like that too. So we'll have her tell us all about it when she's here.
Yes. So
super excited about dystonia awareness next week with Chelsea Chrisman. So don't miss it. It'll probably be later like this. Sue says this is a great time period to do it.
Okay.
Because people can pop on and watch.
I was going to say, we'll be sharing maybe a little more information next week about.
Sue says she might want to be on the team. Ah, yes. That would be so fun. Well, we will give you more info next week, Sue, and then you can let us know. That would be great. So, so that's all for this week with the tall and the short of it. And we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.